Hello, students, and welcome to week 4 of the semester. This week in History of Sexuality, we're going to be talking about Islamic sexual cultures of the Middle East, and specifically, those that flourished within the Ottoman Empire between the 16th and 18th centuries. The study of Islamic sexualities is relatively new. The earliest research on this topic dates to the late 1970s, when a group of scholars at the University of California, Los Angeles sponsored a conference on society and the sexes in Islam. Since then, the topic has attracted more and more interest, but still, it remains a relatively underdeveloped area of research, especially in terms of historical scholarship. As is the case with ancient Greece, much of the attention here has been devoted to same-sex sexual desire and behavior. In 1997, for example, the American scholar Stephen Murray published an edited volume entitled Islamic Homosexualities: Culture, History, and Literature. Published at a time when debates between constructionists and essentialists were raging, Murray's goal was to examine, as he put it, quote, the conceptions and organizations of homosexual desire and conduct in Islamic societies. And, as both this statement and the book's title make clear, the contributors to Islamic homosexualities believe that homosexual identities emerged in the Middle East long before their appearance in late 19th century European and North American contexts. Whether it be through discussions of the homoerotic poetry of Islamic Spain, the homosexual dynamics of slave recruitment by the ruling elites of Mamluk Egypt, or of Muslim religious leaders and their views on things like woman-woman love, the recurring theme of Islamic homosexualities was that long before the 19th century, a general category of homosexuality, as both an act and as an identity, existed throughout the Islamic world. At first glance, this may seem like a fairly easy thing to demonstrate. Consider, for example, the writings of Ahmad al-Tifashi, a 12th century Algerian poet and writer best known for a work that has been translated into English as A Promenade of Hearts. A collection of stories, anecdotes, and poems from the Middle Ages, the book is widely believed to discuss homosexual and lesbian themes. A recent edition of the work uses terms like the homosexual, as you can see from the passage here on the screen, which I'll allow you to read by yourself. Another source frequently trotted out as evidence of homosexuality's supposedly widespread nature in pre-modern Islamic societies is the Arabian Nights, which was first translated into English by the Victorian scholar Francis Burton in 1886. Many of the stories in this volume, which is basically a collection of Arabic folk tales, are sexual in nature. Indeed, many of Burton's contemporaries condemned the book as pornographic. Especially controversial was an essay Burton appended to the end of the volume, in which he alleged that male homosexuality ran rampant in the Middle East. Informed by this kind of questionable scholarship, many Western academics have long argued that, although it was condemned and forbidden by the law, homosexuality was nevertheless tolerated by society and widespread in the lands of pre-modern Islam. One example of this is Bernard Lewis's book Music from a Distant Drum, which claims that there was a distinction between what the law said, on the one hand, and what people actually did and what society accepted, on the other hand. More recently, however, historians have questioned the wisdom of using terms like homosexuality to describe the kinds of homoerotic desires and behaviors evidenced in early Islamic societies. A good example of this is Khaled El-Rouayheb's book Before Homosexuality in the Arab Islamic World. Published in 2005, the book makes use of a variety of different sources, including dictionaries, legal texts, religious commentaries on the Quran, private letters and correspondence, Sufi literature, and medical texts, published in the Ottoman Empire between 1500 and 1800. Like earlier scholars, El-Rouayheb generally finds that pre-modern Islamic societies had a permissive, non-judgmental outlook on same-sex sexual desires, and that in some cases they even sanctioned things like male-male romance, and in particular, courtship involving adult men and boys. However, unlike earlier scholars, such as Murray, El-Rouayheb does not think any of these were examples of homosexuality. Looking at modern-day translations of al-Tifashi's work, for example, he finds that the use of the term homosexual here is inaccurate, as it obscures some important distinctions early modern Arabic speakers drew between three different things. One, those devoted to al-lata, which is the plural of the word luti, which literally means anal. Two, the murd muajirin, beardless boys who rendered sexual services to the al-lata. And third, the al-khinath, adult effeminate men who wished to be sodomized by other adult men. To call each of these three individuals homosexuals, El-Rouayheb contends, is erroneous, because before the 19th century, Islamic societies did not organize sexuality around the gender of one's partner. Instead, as in ancient Greece, they prioritized the distinction between active and passive sexual roles. Early modern culture in the Ottoman Empire lacked a single unifying concept of the homosexual, as the active and passive partners were imagined to be totally different individuals. In what follows, I'd like to explore El-Rouayheb's book in more detail with you. In particular, I'd like us to examine how he makes the case against homosexuality's existence in the lands of early modern Islam. One of the most interesting chapters of Before Homosexuality in the Arab Islamic World concerns Ottoman legal discourses around various forms of illicit sex, specifically liwat, which is anal intercourse. Looking at how judges, court officials, and legal experts understood this kind of behavior, and at how criminal they thought it was, we can get a good sense both of early modern Islamic sexual categories and of how permissible various forms of homoerotic sexual behavior were. These are, in fact, our two questions for today. 1. How does El-Rouayheb attempt to make the case that there was no homosexuality in the early Ottoman Empire? And 2. To what extent was homoeroticism accepted within Arabic-speaking societies of the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries? So, to start, the condemnation of liwat originated in the Quran, and in particular in a series of verses in which the prophet Lot comments on the sexual vices of the people of Sodom. Although the exact sexual acts committed by the inhabitants of this city were never identified, in the Quran, these prompt God to destroy the people of Sodom with a rain of stones baked of clay. Muslim jurists, later on, associated the act of the people of Lot with anal intercourse. Indeed, this is where the word liwat comes from. Yet, while the Quran condemns this severely, Islamic jurists generally regarded liwat as a minor sin. Some schools of Islamic jurisprudence regarded liwat as a form of zina, or fornication, but zina were regarded as a less serious sin than either murder or unbelief. In the Shafi system, liwat could at times be punished with death by stoning, but importantly, this only ever applied to the active partner. Also important was the fact that what was being punished here was not sex between men, but instead something very specific: anal intercourse. It did not matter to jurists whether this was between two males or between a male and a female. Moreover, in some other schools of thought, like the Hanafi tradition, which prevailed throughout the Ottoman Empire, liwat was not even regarded as a zina, because zina were defined in terms of vaginal intercourse. Here, the punishment was a minor fine, along with a discretionary chastisement, such as a whipping or short-term imprisonment. And again, this only ever applied to the penetrator, not the person being penetrated. In the Ottoman Empire, liwat was never subject to major punishments, which were called had. Lastly, it should be noted that when it came to the implementation of these laws, judges were generally quite lenient, and the grounds for proving liwat, or zina more broadly, were quite high. Consider the words of the Hanafi scholar Muhammad al-Kawakibi from 1685. As all of this indicates, when jurists spoke of liwat and zina, they were not comparing homosexuality and heterosexuality. Indeed, the fact that liwat included male-male anal sex and male-female anal sex illustrates that gender did not play much of a role in early Ottoman conceptions of sexual desire and behavior. In addition to this, we should draw attention to what was not included under the category of liwat. This did not include non-anal forms of intercourse between men. Neither kissing, caressing, nor intercrural intercourse, in which the penis is thrust between a partner's thighs, were mentioned as liwat. The mode of intercourse was more important than the gender of the partners. Another reason that homosexuality is the wrong term here has to do with the way that the desire for liwat was conceptualized. Instead of being something that only a specific segment of the population was interested in, the desire for liwat was seen as universal. There were numerous traditions attesting to this. Consider, for example, the words of the Meccan scholar Muhammad Ali ibn Alam. In addition to debating how serious a sin it was to practice liwat in daily life, legal scholars also considered the permissiveness of this in the afterlife. Many of those who condemned liwat, interestingly, did so by arguing that this was both filthy, involving possible contamination with excrement, and non-reproductive, as it could not lead to pregnancy. In heaven, however, neither filth nor procreation were believed to exist. On the basis of this, some experts asked, did this mean that sodomy was acceptable in the afterlife? Those who supported this view directed attention to several passages in the Quran speaking of the boys of paradise, specially created individuals who attend to the whims of the male faithful in heaven. Out of this grew a particular genre of writing focused on so-called martyrs of love, that is, adult men who died from unconsummated desire and love for a boy. Their reward for this was said to be a beardless youth who would await them in heaven and satisfy all of their sexual desires. Okay, we're going to have to leave things here for now. I hope you found this lecture informative and that you're looking forward to sharing your thoughts on the question of homosexuality in early Ottoman societies. Once you've had some time to think about some of the things we've learned from El-Rouayheb's analysis, please head over to the discussion board and address the questions here on the screen. I look forward to hearing from you and to responding to your comments. Until then, this is Professor Bowen signing off. I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.